Hello there, welcome to another video in this Unity Quest VR series. In this video, we are going to talk about the user experience UX part of VR. Some of you might have general idea about how to go in terms of UI and UX in VR, and some of you would have experience with UI UX in a 2D form, say mobiles or web pages. Now, the difference which we need to deal with when we are designing for VR is that the devices which we are used to all this while, be it a mobile or be it a tablet or be it a desktop, we basically have to deal only with two dimensions. Whereas when it comes to VR, we have this additional third dimension to deal with. Now, that opens up another layer of complications in terms of designs as such. But to keep it simple and to keep it basics, we are going to cover a little bit on the general outline of what to do and what not to do. VR is going to be dependent on the headset and the controllers. So no matter which device you do, be it Oculus or be it Vive, there will always be some sort of an interaction element, and there is going to be a screen through which you view through, but the screen is going to be a 360-degree space. When we talk about the head-mounted displays, the first thing which we need to talk about is the comfort zone. So when the user wears the headset, we want to keep the user in his or her comfort zone. What do I mean by that is, if you're planning to place or create a menu or throw out the content in front of the user, try not to use the entire 360 space which is around the user. I mean, you don't want the user to look around, look at the back to click a menu, or look at something, do an action right behind him. So try to keep it in the field of view. That is one of the primary things to do. Always give instructions for how to interact with the element. We are very well versed in terms of devices, how to press a button, how to change the switches, but when it comes to VR, you have one more layer added where you have a controller, or even if you're using hand gestures, there are some sort of a pointer which is going from there. So you need to give the user what exactly he needs to do. So guide him through it. Tell him how to turn on the switch or how to push the button. Now that will help them ease this learning curve, which they might find quite hard at the beginning. Now, when we talk about buttons, we need to keep something in mind, that VR might trick people in believing that it is like an actual object, because that's the whole idea, right? I mean, virtual reality. Now, what happens is, when the user starts thinking it to be close to reality, they would expect the objects to react the way it will react in the real life. So if the user presses a button or flips the switch, he or she is expecting it to react in a way. So always have all your buttons and all your interactions reactive. So make sure if there is a pointer is gazing, then make sure to give a tiny glow so that it indicates, okay, he's gazing over that. Then when you press it, make sure to give the proper reaction so that it doesn't feel observed for the user. Again, when I talk about reacting to the user, restrict the reaction only when the user is interacting. Having anything moving around, following the user during, even if he or she is not reacting to it, is something which might make the user little uncomfortable. What do I mean by that? Imagine there is a menu, and then when the user turns the head, the menu is going to follow around. Now that might sound like something which would feel nice, but when you wear the headset and you experience it, it starts to become little tiring, because that menu is going to be everywhere, wherever you go. So there is no real way for the user to actually get away from it other than closing it, or it is going to defy the purpose of what it is. So try to have the reactions only when there is some sort of a interaction happening. When we talk about the menus and buttons and all the other UI elements, we need to be really sure of the legibility. There needs to be certain distance at which we need to place our texts and graphics. If it is too close, that is going to be disturbing for the user. So try to keep it little far and try to have a bit of legibility. Using very small fonts and very small designs is not going to help. Whatever is applicable in the mobile or web or any 2D design is almost applicable in the VR also. For example, you create a button, then make sure when you have the user press the button, there should be an extra space for the person to know that he is pressing that button, right? You cannot have two small buttons together, and then if the user is trying to press yes, then he might hit the no. So the standard UI rules are mostly applicable in the VR space also. Having some sort of a sound effect to the interaction makes the experience even better. Now, providing a feedback is one of the critical point which I actually spoke about earlier. So having some sort of a visual cue and a sound cue makes the experience better. When it comes to the general experience, you have to keep the user grounded. This is one of the critical points. When the user is not grounded, now what do I mean by being grounded is that when the person is standing on the floor and wearing the VR headset, he should feel that he is exactly at the same height inside the VR experience. If there is some sort of a difference, that is going to conflict and the experience might not be the same for everybody. So make sure the ground level and the user height is something which is taken into consideration. The experience changes based on that. Guiding with lights is one of the efficient way of telling the user what to do next or how to proceed. Highlighting something or flashing something is going to help the user understand that he or she has to interact with that. This is one of the easiest and the most efficient way of triggering an interaction. VR provides few new ways of communicating with the user. One of them is spatial audio. Now, what do I mean by spatial audio? Let me give you an example. You are walking in a crowded street and then there is somebody calling you from behind. Now you know exactly which direction that sound is coming from and you know how to turn back and see who that is. Similar way, spatial audio enables us to provide a surround experience in terms of sound. This goes well with the 360 view the person can actually have. So imagine I have a car in front of me in the 3D space. The car and the engine is running. So when I'm looking at it, the sound might be like loud and I can literally see it's in front of me, so it makes sense. But when I turn back, I will still be able to hear that engine sound from behind, right? Now that is what the spatial audio is all about. Now, how do we make use of this in terms of interactions is that there are certain audio cues which we can give to the user in order for them to actually look back, which I wouldn't recommend, but still there are some cases where you want the user to actually look to a different direction or maybe to an extreme right or a left. Now that is possible with the audio cues. So you can trigger a sound and you could probably make use of the light guidance to have some sort of an arrow or some sort of a UI element which shows that the user should look to the left or look to the right, and you could get the interaction done. Last but not the least, make the entire experience beautiful. Keep everything cohesive. Make sure to have all the menus and buttons and everything going along with the theme, and nothing absurd, nothing bright. For example, there are device dependent designs which you need to do. For example, if you're doing for a mixed reality, say Microsoft HoloLens, there is a problem that if you actually use a white, that's going to be really bright, and if you start using grays, that's going to really dim out and you will not see much in the mixed reality experience, because mixed reality is where you have the reality and then overlaying on top, right? So when you have a gray or a black, that's going to be really dark and the content is not going to be seen. So there are multiple device dependent considerations which we need to do, but on the whole, designing for a VR, most of the points what we covered here applies. So that's pretty much the basics which I wanted to cover in this. and when we start developing, we would be touching each of these points and going back and forth. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and see you in the next video.